Okay, it is time for the first of the Atheist Crocoducks. I guess it's not entirely fair to call it the Atheist Crocoducks. It's I guess it's a little more fair to call it the Skeptic Crocoduck. Just very flimsy, shallow arguments by skeptics, much like the Crocoduck was a very flimsy, shallow argument by a Christian about why Darwinian evolution isn't true. Again, this is very bad arguments that skeptics make against the Christian faith that frequently will have Christians just face palming and thinking, "Oh, this guy doesn't have a clue, does he?" And that is the ending of Mark's gospel. Now, here we go. Women arrive at the empty tomb to anoint his body. They looked up, they saw the stone, it was rolled away. As they entered the tomb, young man dressed in a white robe. They were alarmed. He said, "Don't be alarmed. You're looking for Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified. He is risen. He's not here. See the place where you've laid him. Go tell his disciples and Peter he's going ahead of you to Galilee." And trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled the tomb. They said nothing to anyone. They were afraid. Now here's what the skeptics will say: the earliest manuscripts do not have these verses where Jesus actually appears to the apostles. And here they are. This is written in later. And you know what this tells me? They're going to say, obviously the Christian faith didn't even believe that Jesus originally, that the nascent Christian faith didn't even believe that Jesus really rose from the dead. I mean, you don't even have, there's no talk of him appearing. And this is the first gospel written. There's no talk of him appearing. You know what it sounds like to me? Because you go through other gospels, you have him, eating with them later until John. I mean, he's offering to, offering Thomas to stick his finger in his side and eating meals of fish with them. That this just kind of evolved. And that the original witness of what the apostles believed after the death of Jesus Christ was not that Jesus was risen from the dead. Maybe his tomb was empty, but that's about all. They didn't actually see him. This is obviously added in later. First off, if you put that in a vacuum, that verse, the ending of Mark in a vacuum, and just treat Mark 16 like it's not part of the entire Gospel of Mark, I guess you could say that. But this is Mark 8:31. About, or actually Mark 8:27 through 33. And he's asking what people, Jesus is saying, "Who do you say I am?" Some say John the Baptist, Elijah, others the prophets. "But what about you? Who do you say I am?" Peter says, "You are the Messiah." Jesus warned not to tell anyone about him. He then began to teach that the Son of Man must suffer many things, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. So, even in Mark's gospel, in the earliest manuscripts, Jesus is portrayed as knowing that he was going to die for the sins of the world, knowing that he would be crucified, persecuted by the teachers of the law and the chief priest, and in 3 days rise again. That's, combine that with an angel announcing at Jesus' empty tomb that Jesus was risen from the dead. That's really a weak argument to make that, the earliest Christianity obviously didn't even, there's no actual appearances of Jesus Christ. That is very vague, very doubtful that he had rose from the dead. And here's really what clinches it. See, yes, Mark is the first gospel. That's absolutely correct. Mark's gospel is the first gospel. However, it is not the earliest testimony of the resurrection. The earliest testimony of the resurrection is 1 Corinthians 15. All right, what Paul received, he passed along. In other words, this is not Paul authoring this statement. Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures. He was buried. He was raised on the third day according to the Scriptures. He appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. After that, he appeared to more than 500 brothers and sisters at the same time, most of who were living. Some had fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles, last of all to me, as one abnormally born. Okay, this is penned in 55 before Mark is written. Probably before Mark is written, unless you're an ultra-conservative. It is taught by Paul to the Corinthians in 51. Now the question is, this creed, this expression of faith, when was it given to Paul? It is the opinion of a wide array of scholarship, not just Christian scholarship, and I'll bring that up in a minute, that when Paul visited Jerusalem 2 years after he converted, based on what he says in in Galatians 1:19 and 1:18 through 20, and he visited Peter and James, that was when he got the creed. So this is, depending on when you place the crucifixion, within about 2 or 3 years after Jesus died, Christians were preaching in Jerusalem that Jesus had died, was buried, his grave was emptied, and then he appeared to numerous people. So this is the earliest account of the Christian faith and of the resurrection. It very much included resurrection experiences. This is on Gary Habermas's webpage. And let's see here. He's talking about 1 Corinthians 15:3 through 7. This is the scholars are saying that this is the earliest tradition of all. Perhaps a bit too optimistically, Walter Casper even says that this was possibly even used by the end of 30 A.D. Then he talks about the skeptics to the resurrection, who have no problem affirming, yeah, this is an ancient creed. Gerd Lundemann maintains the elements in the tradition are to be dated to the first 2 years after the crucifixion of Jesus, no later than 3 years. The formation of the appearance of traditions mentioned in 1 Corinthians 15:3 through 8 falls into the time between 30 and 33 CE. Same thing with Michael Golder. Michael Golder talks about it. Let's see, Thomas Sheehan. And then he says others clearly consent and footnotes it. And he said, for instances, C.H.A.M. Wedderburn, Beyond Resurrection, page 274, Robert Funk, Robert Roy W. Hoover in the Jesus Seminar, The Five Gospels, Jack Kent, The Psychological Origins of the Resurrection Myth, page 16 through 17, G.A. Wells, Did Jesus Exist? Page 30. So Habermas trots out numerous skeptical scholars who all agree that, yeah, this is a very early, perhaps the earliest tradition in Christianity, this confession of faith. And far from, the skeptical accusation that Jesus, that the earliest accounts of the resurrection of Jesus didn't even have him appearing to them, it's just not true. So again, if you want to walk away feeling better about not being a Christian, don't use the short ending of Mark as one of your main reasons. There's other things to look at, but don't let that be the one reason. And with that's skeptical or atheist crocoduck number 1. Talk to you next time.